Yeah.
Yolanda, this is Mark. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mark. How are you doing?
Just another day in paradise.
I know you've been busy trying to get folks
Oh, my God.
out here and
Yep.
tell them how important this election is.
Oh, without question, it is insanely important. And obviously, I'm here to support Kamala Harris. I think she's better for all Americans. I think she's better for businesses, small, medium, and large. And I think just her leadership skills are underrated. People really don't realize how qualified she is to bring people together.
You know, Mark, you're a businessman. You're a billionaire. Okay. I talk to a lot of people, of course, where I'm at is a little bit more red leaning. And I'm not understanding why they're not grasping.
Yeah, well, see, that's why I'm talking to you, Yolanda, and why it's important for me to get out there because, you know, you've seen me on Shark Tank.
Mm-hmm.
I understand business. I've invested in hundreds of businesses myself. And so here's what I'm telling people who don't get the business side of what Kamala's doing. Number one, there are 33 million companies in this country. Of those, 99% of them are small businesses. Mm-hmm. And of those, the CEOs and entrepreneurs, the people who own them, make $400,000 or less. And Kamala Harris has been very, very, very specific that if you make $400,000 or less, your taxes are not going up. And for 100 million people, your taxes are going down. So that's part one. She understands that the heart and soul of this country is small business, that, you know, most new hires are hired by small business. And so she's pushing that and putting them in a great position with a tax policy that supports them. Number two, the scariest thing that everybody in Savannah, Georgia faces, whether they're an employee or an entrepreneur, own a business, whatever it may be, is the cost of healthcare. Seriously, it is the second largest expense for every company. And we all face that terror of, okay, your doctor just prescribes some medication. They ask you what pharmacy you want this to go to, and you have no idea what it's going to cost. Kamala Harris realizes that's a problem. She knows that healthcare costs have gone up faster than the cost of groceries. Mm-hmm. And so she has put together a program where she's going after what they call pharmacy benefit managers. They're the middlemen that set the high prices. And by introducing transparency that she's talked about specifically, I know from my experiences, those costs for medication can go down 20, 30% or more. Yes. And if she can get any help from Congress, that'll apply to healthcare and hospitals, etc. So those costs will go down. So when people are talking about inflation, they forget to talk about the cost of healthcare and how much of an impact it's had on inflation. Look, we care more about the cost of our medications than the cost of Gatorade. We can live without the Gatorade. We can't live without our medication. And Kamala Harris has a specific plan. When Donald Trump is asked about the cost of healthcare and medication, he says he has a concept of a plan. He has said absolutely nothing. Under Donald Trump, inflation for medications is going to continue to be rampant. Under Kamala Harris, the price of medications is going down, and it's going down by a lot and by more than enough. I believe it'll be more than enough to offset the increase in the price of Gatorade. And then the third thing that I talk a lot about, particularly with small businesses and with families for that matter, is the impact of tariffs on our everyday life. If you look at the things that you buy day to day, it could be napkins, it could be paper plates, it could be sporting goods, it could be books, it could be clothes, it could be shoes. Most of those things are imported, and most of those imports come from China. And so Donald Trump likes to say he loves tariffs and that he's going to put a 60% tariff on all things imported from China. Now, he doesn't talk about the impact on everyday people and on small businesses. When you put a 60% tariff, that means the price of sporting goods, the price of clothing, the price of shoes are going up by at least 60%. So this time next year, if Donald Trump is president and he's put those 60% tariffs on those imports, when you're making decisions about what to buy for your family and friends for Christmas, those prices are going to have gone up by 60% or more. And what that means is you're not going to be able to buy as much for your family. And what that also means is all those businesses that you would be buying from, the little shop on the street, down the street in Savannah, you know, the sporting goods store that you've been buying from your entire life, they're going to suffer the most because if you can't buy as many Christmas presents, you can't spend as much with them. And the most important part of their year is during Christmas when they sell the most. So while Donald Trump likes to talk about tariffs and say, manufacturers should bring back their manufacturing to the United States, he's ignoring the 33 million companies that don't have manufacturing plants overseas. They're just trying to provide for their families. They're just trying to sell as much as they can over Christmas and the rest of the year. And when Donald Trump implements those tariffs, we're all going to have a worse Christmas. That's why I say Donald Trump is the Grinch that's trying to steal your Christmas. It just comes down to he cares about the big guy. He cares about the businesses that are big, the businesses with 500, 1,000, 10,000 or more employees. But everybody else, he doesn't care about your taxes. He doesn't care about your costs for your family. He doesn't care about your costs for your Christmas. That's the difference. Kamala Harris cares. She talks about it all the time. She is open-minded. She'll listen to anybody. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. I don't, it's not like I'm some big donor. I don't donate to political campaigns. I'm working with Kamala Harris because I understand business, and I know without any doubt in my mind that for all the businesses, the hundreds of businesses I'm invested in, for all the companies I run, the future companies that I'll start, Kamala Harris is better for business and better for hardworking Americans.
Now, a lot of people here, and I hear you, and I see it, and I get it. But there's a lot of people who feel like, okay, well, the economy was better 4 years ago now, sure, but we had a pandemic. So, how do you kind of explain that part to them?
How do you respond to that? Yeah, look, we all look back and think fondly of the past. But when you start looking at the numbers, inflation was lower, but it was on the rise. His inflation was 25% higher than Obama's inflation. He started to his tariff war in January of 2018. And from January of 2018 till January of 2020, before the pandemic, he had a trade war with China, and costs absolutely went up to 25% over the Obama economy. Now, it wasn't until the pandemic hit that we got into the hardcore inflation because we had to do things to resolve the pandemic.
Right.
But if you looked at the trend of things under Donald Trump and the way he used tariffs, prices were going up and on the way up. And I'll tell you one other quick story. Back in the early days of the pandemic, we weren't allowed to drive. Mm-hmm. And because we weren't allowed to drive, the demand for gasoline dried up. And as a result, there was too much production of oil and gas. And as a result, the prices went down. So gas is really cheap. Donald Trump made the decision to call Saudi Arabia and Russia on behalf of his oil company buddies and say, look, my buddies are hurting. I need you to make less oil, because if you make less oil, the price of gas will go up. And that's good for my oil buddy cronies. He made the decision to help his oil company friends over the American people in keeping gas prices lower. And you can trace a straight line from that day when he, negotiated that deal with Russia to higher oil prices and gas prices to inflation. Now, people don't like to get into the details like that. It's not, we want to just live our lives. Mm-hmm. But inflation truly started with Donald Trump. It just got worse when the pandemic hit, and that's what people remember.
And it's like, no matter how much you tell them or you say, do the research, look at it, and they're stuck. It's stuck right there. And it's amazing the conversations that I've had. And folks, I love them dearly, but they're just like, wow. That's all I can say is like, wow. What the deal?
You know what? It's fair. It's fair because people just want to live their lives.
Yeah.
We don't want to have to do research and details. We want to vote for the best candidate. And what I tell people is, what about going forward? We are where we are. Look, if the president doesn't have as much impact on inflation, unless they do something dumb with tariffs, the people who have an impact on how good the economy is are the hardworking Americans of Savannah, Georgia. It's all the entrepreneurs in Savannah, Georgia, and across the country. That's what makes us different than every other country. All the people that go out there and start businesses. Kamala Harris understands that. She put together a $50,000 tax deduction for startup costs for businesses. Under Donald Trump, it's $5,000. If we truly want to see growth, if we truly want an economy, it's small businesses that drive the way. And we also know that when we start businesses, we also have to deal with our families. If you have kids, if you have a newborn, if you have, however many children, help with daycare, help with, with a tax credit for childcare. That's hugely important for everybody, but particularly for small business. So when you look forward to what's the best for the economy, Kamala Harris understands that we need to support businesses, particularly small businesses, because that's who drives the economy. You haven't heard Donald Trump say a word about small businesses. You haven't heard Donald Trump say a word about the working people and what he will do for them. And Kamala Harris says if you make $400,000 or less, not only your taxes not going up, but for 100 million people, your taxes are going down.
You know, when I watch you on Shark Tank, and now I really, really, really get it. I mean, because you just literally.
Well, see, that's why I'm here. I mean, look, there's not a lot of people that just, like on Shark Tank, you know, we deal with 200 companies a season. So I have to, you know, hear and analyze all these different companies and understand what is the impact of their healthcare costs. Mm-hmm. What is the impact of tariffs? What is the impact of deportations, for that matter? He wants to mass deport everybody, and you know he's going to be knocking on doors. We all, you know, every company that hires people has this thing called an I-9, and what an I-9 is, it lists the immigration status of all your employees. Mm-hmm. What Donald Trump wants to do is come knocking on your door as an employer. Let's just say at the radio station, and say, "Hey, I need to see your I-9 list because I want to find out everybody who is here as an immigrant illegally, but I want to go to their house to see if they have any relatives in the house who are not fully documented."
Wow.
And then he talks about wanting to just pull them out and deport them. He talks about having road checks and just checking people's papers. That's not who we are as Americans.
No.
I mean, can you imagine? We all know people or families where there's somebody in that extended family that's been here 10, 20, 30 years that is not fully documented, that may have, 10 American kids or 4 American kids and 10 American grandchildren. Do you want to just pull grandma and grandpa out of their houses and deport them?
I mean, can I tell you the truth? That's happened to my family. My cousin's going right through that. His wife, he's American. She's Mexican. She came here. She was trying to work her papers. She went to the embassy. They kicked her out the country. She has 2 kids, American kids, American husband, kicked her out the country for 10 years. She's still there.
And how long was she here?
She was here 20 years.
Wow. And when did this happen?
This happened almost 5 years ago, and she's still in Mexico. We can't get her out. We don't even know what to do.
And who was president 5 years ago?
Oh, okay. That part. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. Yes.
And so what happened to you? Imagine if that started happening. Imagine if that started happening all across Savannah, all across the country. Mm-hmm. That's what he wants to do.
Yeah. And they were trying.
That's not who we are as a country.
No, I mean, she has not seen her kids. They're grown. She hasn't seen her kids.
That's horrible. That is just horrible. Look, under Kamala Harris, what would be different is she would know what the process is. It would be completely transparent, and she would know exactly what she needs to do. And that is the difference. Mass deportations. Can you imagine having migrant camps, or if she was put into a camp as opposed to being sent back to Mexico? That's just horrific.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I get it. And I just wish people do get it and, get out there and vote. And of course, we still have early voting happening here in Georgia. So anything you want to tell the folks? Mm-hmm.
For everybody listening, don't just vote. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. Take them to the polls to early vote. It's that important. If you make under $400,000, and most people do, your taxes have a good chance of going down. So by going to vote, you're actually saving yourself money. If you have a family and a child tax credit helps you, you're actually saving money by going to vote for Kamala Harris and bringing more friends and family with you. Making the decision to vote isn't just about yourself. It's about your family and the people you love and how the next president will impact. And you've already seen what's happened to your family. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? Just multiply that times thousands of people, if not 1 million people or more.
Absolutely.
We don't need that. And voting makes all the difference.
Yeah, it does. And I'm just hoping that people just do what they're supposed to do, use their voice, and that's to vote.
Yep. You're exactly right.
Thank you so much, Mark. I can't wait to see you on Shark Tank making other people millionaires. You're making millionaires. So if it's coming from you, please.
More than 1,000 of them so far. More than 1,000.
More than 1,000 millionaires. So I think what you're saying, you're talking truth right now today. So, hey, that's all I got to say.
That's why I'm here. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.